Hello and welcome everybody to another attributed show by Dream Data. Today I'm very happy because Nicolas Algoedt, you'll have to correct me afterwards whether I pronounce that correctly, is joining me. Nicolas has been part of a crazy growth journey at Insider, roughly going from 20 million ARR per year to 200 million ARR per year. And I luckily managed to convince Nicolas to come and share a few of the insights about what has really been part of this amazing journey. And hopefully I and you who listen in and join in live, for those of you who do that, can hopefully learn from it as well. As we do these as live shows, then do treat it as a conversation that you are part of. So do type in questions that Nicola and I can pick up. That will be much more fun for us. But Nicola, for those, is it Nicola or Nicolas?
Yeah, you can call me, everybody call me Nico, so I think it's easier.
Let's just go with Nico then. Nico, for those who have never heard about you or Insider before, could you just give a brief intro about both you and the company?
Of course. Hi, Stefan. Hi, everyone joining. Thanks for having me, first of all. So my name is Nico. I'm the VP of Revenue Marketing at Insider. For those who don't know Insider, Insider is a customer experience platform. We allow brands to personalize their customer interaction on all channels with AI. We are a unicorn. We are established in 26 different markets, growing very fast, hiring very fast as well. And yeah, I've been there for about 5 years. I initially joined a very promising startup, mostly based in APAC back in the days. I was hired to establish initially the EMEA marketing function, but we quickly worked on establishing the foundation of demand gen and revenue marketing from the tech stack, the measurement system, also transforming what the team was working on and focusing on to, I think my mission when I joined was to turn marketing into a revenue machine, and now scaling this to 26 different regions.
That's a fantastic achievement. This thing about turning marketing into a revenue machine, was that kind of was that part of the job description or a focus that you gave the job as you started?
I think it came a little bit naturally. Not, I mean, if I look back 5 years ago, it wasn't that popular to ask marketing to share a big part of the revenue responsibilities. I think it is much more trendy these days, I still think a lot of marketing department doesn't really truly own revenue in some extent. I talk to a lot of companies, they still have like MQL or pipeline target. I mean, those things are great when you look at campaign performance, but revenue, having a true revenue target is still something quite rare. So I just think, like, as a company, we are a bit obsessed with our growth, and all departments are now contributing to revenue, including marketing.
It's super cool to hear. Can you get a little bit closer to what that means then, being responsible for revenue, or like at least in what it means in your world? There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, our number one target as a marketing organization is source revenue by marketing activities. As a marketing department, but every single member of the marketing team, or at least most of them, share a revenue target. My team, who are all the regional marketers in these 26 regions, share a revenue target as much as the inside sales department or a partnership department is owning a revenue target. So we need to share our responsibilities over there.
Yeah, and that's really cool. So every region is kind of assigned a certain amount of pipeline to produce every month or quarter or year then?
Yeah, I mean, we look at things on a quarterly basis, and yeah, like if you're a marketer at Insider and you are not able to actually source a significant portion of the revenue for your region, let's say, or for your sub department, you will not be successful. Big mentality shift. I think especially I know when new marketers are joining the team, most of the time they are not used to this. And it requires a little bit of time to adjust because, typical response I'm getting is like, yeah, well, we are not closing the deals. How can we be responsible for the full funnel? But as soon as you start changing this, you suddenly have marketers not only working on generating top of the funnel, but also ensuring that that funnel goes down to close one and becoming a customer. And that completely changed the way we do marketing in a way, because we really do care about what's happening after that first touch point. We are enterprise sales company. We sell to big brands with a fairly long sales cycle. So we know that it's never, ever going to be one touch only. So having marketers being responsible for the full funnel is obviously helping us addressing all these touch points.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How does that then translate into kind of everyday meetings or weekly meetings or monthly meetings? So how do kind of the projects that how many regions did you say, 26 or 28 or something like? Do you then one by one go through the different kind of projects that they have and evaluate their likelihood to impact revenue, or how does it kind of trickle down into the like daily organization of marketing?
Well, I think we give our team a pretty high level of responsibility. Of course, as soon as you give them a revenue, it's pretty big. We give them a high level of freedom to run after that target. We give them the tools, the best practice to get there. So honestly, it doesn't necessarily change the way we run marketing on a daily basis. But it's just a mindset shift that we have. And of course, we spend a lot of time measuring and trying to understand where the revenue is coming from, whatever the activities that we're doing. So we can quickly go deeper into things that drive revenue, or just drop things that are actually not working for us. But I think we're going to touch base on quite a few of these topics later, including the importance of brand and all of this. So,
yeah, that's probably a good segue, because I asked you a lot to come up with some tangible advice on what you've learned on this big growth journey. If we go back to what was the first thing you can recall that got implemented after you started in marketing, that started to, where you could kind of feel that now this is moving the needle? What did you do?
Well, I think you can only optimize things that you can fully understand and measure. So building really trustworthy data and measurement system is pretty key. You can't really grow revenue if you don't have that in place. And when I say trustworthy, is you really need to, whatever you use for your company, really have the buy-in from the entire organization that this is accurate and this is trustworthy. So honestly, this is what we've tried to put in place at first, which we didn't necessarily have. So of course, having the right tool in place to do this, having the right practice and processes to do this. So of course, typically asking our prospect where they heard about us, not only on our forms when they land on our website, but also during our conversation we have with our prospect, truly understand where they came from, also analyzing the data that we have. But I think every marketer here in the room will say that it's always complicated. It's never a black or white story. But if you look at all the data, and at the end of the day, this is what we do. We have a committee for every single opportunity that we generate. At the end of the day, the opportunity owner, which is usually a salespeople, we are getting together to analyze all this data, whether communicated by the prospect or visible on our platforms, and we we agree on an attribution for that given opportunity. We know that, of course, every department, every touch point will have some kind of influence on that deal, but we come together to agree on, okay, what was the primary source of opportunity, and we all agree on it. So once you have this system in place, of course, we are enterprise sales, so it's not like we are managing thousands of opportunity. I mean, now that we're 26 different regions, we do have probably a couple of thousands, but it's still manageable. And everyone has a stamp of approval on those things. So there is like a trust on the system. And then we can start optimizing from this.
It's almost like a deal committee then, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, I've never
really
heard.
Take time to understand how the deal was done. Basically.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It's almost always the first advice that I give people is to start being curious about where those deals come from.
Exactly.
Like have that conversation in your teams. Where does revenue come from? And try to collect the different stories about the deals and see where that rabbit hole will take you over time.
It took us some time to establish, but honestly, for me, and don't take me wrong, I think data is not everything. You sometimes also as marketer or as founders to trust your guts in terms of what's working, what's not working. But really having this in place really helped us have visibility on things that we needed to invest more money or time and energy on, because we knew that we had a regular stream of and predictable and growing stream of pipeline coming from those things, tactics or channels, versus things that we needed to drop. So for me, like anyone that starts in this role and wants to really grow revenue at a predictable and very fast pace, we're talking about 2x on average per year. If you don't have that in place, you can't do that.
I think that's a wonderful practice, Nicolas. Just like one is you need to establish a baseline so you can see if the numbers change, and you need to also develop a language in the company of of what matters. And I think probably what you're hinting at there is also that if we are to double every year, we need to know what works so we can do more of what works as well, because it's not the distribution of the credit for the deal is not as such interesting. It's much more important what you can do with the information, whether that is save a lot of money or invest a lot of money in stuff that works, right?
Exactly.
Super nice. So with that in place, the language and baseline of what works, what is the next thing that comes to mind as a growth lever that you guys went deep into?
Well, maybe not from a marketing standpoint, but first of all, I think as a company, you can get away probably by having only a sales-led motion or a partnership-led motion if you are 10 or 20 million ARR, right? Yeah. But as soon as you get to that infamous 100 million mark, if you don't have all departments contributing, I think you're going to have a scale issue. And that's why having, marketing also having revenue responsibilities, I think for a company to scale to that levels is almost, I would say it's a must. You should definitely have, especially something that we've noticed and especially recently is as a marketing organization, we are not at all investing on brand in the early days. I think most marketing organization, when you make 100 million or 10 million AR, you usually don't spend a minute on brand because you have other fight and battles to fight, right?
Yeah.
What we are observing, and it's really obvious over the last 2 years for us, is, well, when you reach 100 million AR, brand is becoming quite critical because you probably at this point have plateau a few channels. You probably do, if you are, Martech, or you probably do a lot of events. But these things are scalable to a degree, right? And that's where, if you want to sustain that growth, if you don't have a strong brand or a strong organic engine, it becomes problematic. So I would say that over the last 2 years, we've spent much more energy on brand that we ever did in the past.
That's very interesting. Before we go, I would love to go deeper into what brand then is, but maybe what has been the observations once you kind of realized that one channel or tactic have been kind of exhausted or plateaued, as you called it? What is kind of the typical observations you've done where you've sat and thought, okay, I can't push this anymore. I need to move to something else now.
Well, first of all, I think before you plateau a channel, it takes a lot of time. Before, I think a lot of people have a tendency to say, okay, we optimized the channel as much as we could. Let's go to the next one. But if you really look, how deep have you been? There is always a lot of optimization. Like one thing that we has been extremely profitable for us has been the investment that we made into reviews. For instance, for us, like we are a leader and perceived as a leader by most of the analysts, and on G2 also our customers. Because we didn't came from Silicon Valley, for us it was very important because we knew we had a superior product, but we were not coming from the fancy part of the world. We knew that we needed to leverage our customer love in a way to really get being positioned as a leader in all those things. So we invested a lot of effort and energy into this from the very early days. And today we are on the number 5 best software product on G2, for instance, alongside Zoom, Google. But this didn't come randomly. We really spend, and to this day, we are really dedicating so much time and effort into this. As a marketing organization, we have a dedicated team, but also it's a company-wide effort. Like getting reviews from happy customers is something that we hope we're coming organically every day, but of course it's also about asking. And this is also something that customer success, account managers, everyone is sharing at a company level, because we know that at a company level, these things are driving revenue on a very regular basis. And of course we see it because we have this data. Without this data foundation, maybe we wouldn't have spent so much time on this. And today it's one of our biggest strengths.
Yeah, I can tell from somebody who's in a similar category with you in one category. It's hard to compete with the insider on G2. I think it's
but it's not only about reviews as well. Like the reason why I was saying this is how deep do you go? Like I think we are obsessed about this to a point where even like the team at J2 really talk to us a lot. They from their own words, I think that we have the most dedicated marketing focus and team on this than they are seeing elsewhere. For instance, it's not only about reviews, but do you truly understand how the algorithm of those platforms are working for you to be ranked higher than your competitors, and how much, once you identify those criteria, how much time and effort you are putting into optimizing every single one of them, and going extremely deep and granular into things. So that's why I'm saying, like, people think they plateau channels or tactics, but the reality is when you really put a lot of focus and energy into it, there is still a lot of possibilities for growth into this. Like, I think it's very hard to plateau channels.
I think it's
field marketing is different. Yeah,
it's a really good point, Nicolas, and I think it's probably where I don't want to say a number, but a lot of marketers are too eager to jump onto the next shiny, flashy idea. But they forget that the things that do work right now is actually what's paying their salary right now.
Exactly.
So if you just change from one activity to the next, then you have not really exhausted all or extracted all the value you can get out of a specific experiment. That's why kind of the stable working experiment is what is going to fund all the other fun stuff you should do. So I think this is even something we struggle with sometimes, is that how do you, once you've established something that is working, how do you make sure you don't drop the ball on that while being fancied by the next flashy tactic that shows promises?
Yeah, well, I think it's a question of scale, really. When we look at our teams, of course, when I look at what they were doing 5 years ago versus now, I feel like they are doing 20 times more. So if you don't find a way to optimize your processes in a way that makes those things painless to execute as
Yeah.
much as possible, at least, you will never be able to scale. So I think you need to really find the tactic that works for you, go extremely deep, optimize them as much as possible so they get pain-free, if I can say, to execute, so that you can free time for your team to start tapping into other tactics and channel and do the same thing with those, and so on and so forth.
I think that's super good advice. Just because we also go quite deep into the G2, and I learned a trick or two from you. How do you, or if you could talk a little bit about the internal motivation triggers at Insider to collect reviews? Or what is it that incentivizes the employees of Insider to care deeply about collecting reviews from happy customers?
Well, I think first of all, it's a culture thing. I think winning customers is everyone's job at the company. Either you are in product, it's about building the best product to retain, grow, win, and retain them. But if you are a customer success account manager, the more new customers are coming in, the more customers are willing to share the experience. I mean, for me, like, it's really a culture thing. If you don't have this culture, it's never going to happen. I remember, like, for instance, Gong really grew their, the number one marketing tactics at Gong back in the day was really to have, like, every employee sharing on social media and being the voice of Gong on social media to really increase their reach. And this could not have been possible if it was not infused by the founders. Like, I think the same thing. If I was the only one trying to convince other departments of the importance of this, I would probably not be successful. But our founders, CEO, CRO, are repeating this to the team every day, and are really in the trenches with us when it comes to reminding other departments the importance of this. So I think it's a culture thing, really.
That's a good leadership lesson. If you really want to succeed with something, you need to preach it every day.
And again, like, also they know, because we know that maybe 5-10% sometimes of our qualified demo requests that comes to our website, people are saying that they heard about it through G2, or it comes from referral traffic from G2. So we know, like, and this is only looking at what's coming in and actually saying that it's, but we know that most of the RFPs these days, they will go through G2 one day or another. So it probably influences, if not all our deals, 90% of it.
And maybe just Nick, for those who don't know what an RFP is, just a quick summary of how they come about.
Well, I think RFP stands for request for proposal. Most of especially if you sell to enterprise, they will have to go through a process like this to buy software. So they will shortlist 3 to 5 brands that will have to go through a selection. Already 5 years ago said, marketing jobs is to make sure that we are selected in the top 3 or 5, and the market and sales can do the rest. In a way, I think nowadays even more, 90% of the time, people have done their research, have kind of done their selection before even asking anything. A lot of the time, they even ask for RFP because they have to follow guidelines, but they probably already selected in their head, at least, the vendor. So being the first to receive that kind of proposal is really critical. So being perceived as the brand's teams and people love is really important for us.
That's a good expression that your former manager put in your head. Then it's marketing's responsibility to get on that list, and it's a process big companies go through in order to make somewhat rational choices. So they make a list of.
It becomes pretty critical in we are in a very crowded space. We are competing with, like, plenty of other people, sometimes new, but also old old vendors, I would say, not to say name, but the big blue cloud is one of our competitors, for instance, pretty established. So being able to, even though a smaller company that challenge the status quo, to be
Yeah,
selected next to them is always a pleasure.
that's super nice. Maybe maybe there's, I don't know. Have you worked? Speaking of getting on RFP list, have you worked a lot with these? What are they called? Analyst relations, the Gartner, the Forrester, etc. Has that been part of that playbook as well to make sure you get on the
Yeah.
RFPs?
Yeah, of course. We are also leader on Gartner, Forrester, and all this. Honestly, this has, my experience at least, this has had various impacts depending on the market you are in. Honestly, in some markets, nobody's talking about Gartner and Gartner and Forrester. Sorry.
Yeah.
In APAC, for instance, quite rare. I don't see it often. Maybe it's our own specificities, but I see Gartner, Forrester being something that is more useful in a more mature market, like maybe the US or the UK, for really big deals. But yeah, having both the validation from analyst and customer has been quite useful. But I personally believe that anything that is less analyst related, more customer, is going to have a growing importance in any deals. We entered the US quite late as a company. We started in APAC and progressively went and entered the US not so long ago. And I think people in the US are buying software the way they select a restaurant, really. They go in, check the reviews, and are a bit serious. And I think the importance of communities as well. They see who are the best software out there. They talk to their peers, on WhatsApp and other channels that you are absolutely not be able to measure, and make their pre-selection like this.
Yeah. Is this an area that you're, let's call it, monitoring or actively trying to improve your presence on the community part?
Yeah, definitely. I think I personally believe that this is going to be major in the years to come.
What are you then? What are you then specifically doing to position Insider better and better in communities?
Well, typically we are beta testing a few things. For instance, we're trying to approach influencer or amongst influencer in our space, not necessarily our customers. Or we are, if we know that we have a happy customers that is having a pretty big network, we try to approach these people to turn them into brand ambassador, for instance. Honestly, it's a very, very early days for this, but I didn't really have any kind of success over there yet that I can share, or especially not in a scalable way. But I'm sure that in the future, this thing's going to be huge. I mean,
absolutely, I agree. Then it's, I think B2Bs need to find their way of doing it. Whereas, if you're an e-commerce, you can, you ship the running shoe to somebody, and then the influencer posts a picture of the running shoe. But how do we translate that into B2B? Because often, if they're hired in a job, they're not allowed to take take money from you, because that would kind of skew their unbiasedness. So we need to find ways to kind of incentivize or make them feel part of something that makes them wanna share stuff. I think one thing we have at least learned on our side is that if you don't ask, people don't share. So at least the people who like you can once in a while ask for favors, and sometimes they will share. I don't know if you found any early signals, Nicolas, of what worked.
I mean, it's always, I think you need to give, and then maybe you get, and incentivization is not always about money. I think one thing that most of these people have in common is most of the times they want to grow their personal brand and their career. And you have a lot to, as a company, you often have a lot to offer to do that by, leveraging them allowing them to speak at some big event that you're organizing in front of a lot of people, for instance. if I look back, sometimes companies struggle a lot to get speakers or customers to speak at event. But when back in 2020, when we had COVID and we had to shift everything digitally, we organized some pretty big online conference. We had Richard Branson, Barack Obama, who came to speak at our events. And that was pretty awesome. And of course, once you start to get those names, people are quite willing to have their face next to those people on your landing pages. And it can be a win-win situation as well. And you will be surprised. I think people, a lot more than we think, are willing to share and be active in the community.
Yeah, very interesting. I think there's definitely even with this live show here, we see it as well as kind of we get more and more bigger names, then the next pitch gets easier because people want to
build credibility.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, credibility. That's a good word for it. Nicolas, if we steer a little bit back to the plateauing experiments in terms of growth, do you have kind of a playbook for what you do on where to find out where to go next? Then, kind of if the main channels feels exhausted, what is the do you have a rational process, or is it a gut feeling of where to turn next?
Well, I don't know if it's very rational, but one thing for sure is that we try to have very high velocity over there when we try new things. Because if you don't have that, you just don't move fast enough. I don't think we have something very elaborate, but we talk to a lot of people. I found this is some of the most useful things that has been that I've used in my career, and to this day is I probably spend 2 hours of my week talking to peers from various industries, former competitor, or sometimes completely different sub-industry, but really trying to understand what they are doing.
Yeah, that's how we met. You just reached out and asked for a call, and now we've been talking for a year or something like that.
Exactly. That's what I do a lot, and I learn tremendously from that. And whenever we find something that could be a good fit for us as a company, I mean, you need to always look at, would that be useful for us? We often try to, we say, okay, this quarter, we're gonna make it a priority. We're gonna research this. We're gonna try and establish a proposed approach to it. And usually within 3 months, we start initiating things like this.
That's super nice. It's I think it's from something that I was, for example, speaking to Guillaume Cabane, who's very much talking about.
I remember I've watched this one actually.
You have to think about it, everything as growth and everything as an experiment, whereas in marketing, you can fall a little bit asleep and fall into this kind of, oh, we produce case studies, so we should just continue to produce case studies, or we write for SEO because we've always done that. But you need to think about everything as a constant experiment, and anything always have an alternative cost, which is you can only spend your time on, you can only spend an hour once. So you need to make sure that you continuously put that hour of work into stuff that actually yields a good return.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to the initial conversation, when you start having a share, the revenue responsibilities, and sometimes, 30, 40, 50% of the company revenue, and the company is growing as fast as a company like Insider, you quickly have to find new things, because otherwise you just can't reach your target. And there is always low-hanging fruits, even for a company like us, but just the priorities are changing. I can give you an example. Obviously, enterprise sales, we didn't really look into conversion rate optimization on our website for many, many years, because we simply didn't necessarily have the volume that to optimize 2% there, 2% there wouldn't make really so much of a difference. So it wasn't our priorities. There's always things to fix, right? As it's our job to fix things, but not everything needs to be fixed right away. But nowadays we are spending a lot of time there because it's the right time. And therefore, small increments here and there are making a big impact for us.
A very
But
nice example.
before today, we were really not looking to this.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I think talking to other brands that are, for instance, I think if you are an enterprise sales kind of SaaS company over there, you often have a massive amount of things you can learn from, companies that sell to do small business, let's say, and have like this kind of more mass volume approach to B2B, because often the things that they do are the things that are going to get relevant for you, even though you're enterprise, when you start reaching a certain volume. So we learn a lot from these kind of companies who have maybe a freemium models, because they are usually 10 times more advanced than you from a digital standpoint, a SEO standpoint, paid media standpoint. So eventually even trying to hire people from those companies so they can bring this knowledge in-house can have a massive impact for you. So always trying to understand where's your revenue, like where's the marketing organization is going to transform next, and how can you bring people in that can bring you knowledge that you necessarily doesn't have because you never worked on those things before.
Very interesting. I think probably the most impressive thing is that you continue to have these conversations with people you don't know, and you continuously bring in new people because I don't know how many reports you have now, but it's probably more than 20. So finding the time every week to actually continuously meet new people is quite impressive.
It's a commitment, but I think my CMO is doing it as well. Most of our leaders are doing the same thing. Even our founders are doing it. Of course,
Nice.
They are having introduction from board members and they talk to other CEOs. But I think this is, whether you are an intern or CEO, this is the most valuable thing you can do in your day. Of course, you need to select kind of the right people to talk to. But I sometimes learn 10 times more from people that are at, let's say, lower positions, that are in the field, in the trenches, doing stuff than C-levels, quite frankly.
That's something I can testify to, that the more the leader you become, the worse practical marketer you get. So it's really good to speak with those who sit with things every day. Even and that is so right, because for almost any marketer, they know 1, 2, 3 things that really, really works. Like, for example, from you, I got one trick from G2 that it worked. And if you continuously do this at scale, talk with smart people, you pick up a lot of tricks.
You get inspired. And, when in our case, because we are penetrating so many markets, very often markets we didn't have a clue about, like how do you learn? Like how do you learn how to do marketing in Colombia, for instance? Well, you need to hire the right talents that tell you what to do, and you need to talk to a lot of people, so that as a leader, you know more or less, the right things to do for the market that could work for you. So you get a sense of where you need to go, right?
I think that's a super good practical advice. Just seek out people who look smart and in the same industry as yourself and try to learn from them. Nicolas, we talked a little bit before about this brand move from when you move from being a scale up to a big established company like you guys are now. How would you kind of describe kind of why have you started to feel that brand is important now, and what is brand, and what is it that you can do to improve whatever brand is?
Well, there is this famous quote from Jason Lemkin, who said, like, if you do 1 million ARR, you probably do nothing about brand. To 100 million, you do a lot of marketing is brand, and 1 billion ARR, it's all about brand.
Yeah, I saw that.
Honestly, I can really see it. It's crazy how when we reached 100 million ARR and above, like brand became, and I found myself talking about brand much more often, almost every day, because if you, at a certain stage, if you cannot have a strong organic engine that is, for me, very linked to your brand and brand awareness, that gives you that constant and very predictable stream of requests on your website and people asking to learn your product and this, at some point you won't be able to scale as fast, at least. So I think it's very important.
So, but let's try to get even more specific. So, is the brand, is that what you type on your website that says what you are, or is it a matter of how much airtime marketing buys to reach as many potential buyers as possible? How is it? If you are to make
It's
it a bit more tangible, what would you say to this?
well, I think it's hard to describe, but let's say maybe I can describe it this way. Before you have a brand, you need analysts and G2 and Roses to be seen as a number one leader. Once you have a brand, you don't need them anymore. I think people naturally sees you without being told that you are the go-to brand for this need or this need, right? They don't need to be told. I don't think Apple needs to have anyone reviewing their iPhone for people to buy an iPhone. And I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, and I think, and then to get to that state, you need to speak with a lot of people. You need to run a lot of ads. You need to do a lot of events. You need to have a great product. Yeah, there's all these different components.
Exactly. Let me give you a practical example. When we were smaller, when we were doing events, it was all about how can we minimize costs.
Yeah.
And get in terms of, we just want to sell 2 salespeople over there, networking with a few people, get as many opportunities as we can. That was our conversation where we're maybe 10 million ARR. Mm-hmm. Now, whenever we go to an event, because we know events, especially like the big trade shows that are really specific to our industry, probably the most cost efficient way of doing brand activation. Because if you think about it, all your ICP is there. Try to replicate that on paid social, paid search, even billboard, it's going to cost you a fortune. So whenever we approach an event nowadays, we really think about how can we augment brand visibility at those events by investing more, by having a bigger presence, or maybe billboard or guerrilla marketing. It's not always about money. It could be also, you can do a very smart guerrilla marketing activation at your event that really impact your brand awareness and spend very little on it. But just like maybe you didn't spend money, but you spend time, focus, energy thinking about those things. And that's the big difference. Whenever we attend an event, there is like actually a brand committee thinking about how we can make this event something that's going to augment our brand.
Super nice advice. Cool. If we let's maybe dedicate the last couple of minutes we have together to what's coming up next for the next year of your role. What are the things you have, or in general, advice for the next year or years for B2B marketers? What is it that you're paying a lot of attention to now and perhaps are experimenting with?
Well, we touched base on those topics early on, but I think I don't have a crystal ball, but one thing that is almost certain is as much as internet completely disrupted the way B2B buying process was taking place, I think social media and community is currently disrupting completely, even further, maybe to an even bigger degree, the buying process. So I think nailing down social media, nailing down influencer marketing, even if you are enterprise sales, going to be pretty key. Of course, the ones that are making it at the moment successfully, I think, are more like SMB level, high volume, high scale. People who were potentially doing even affiliate marketing back in the days. I'm pretty sure it will come to all types of company in the future as well. So influencer marketing is going to be pretty key. I think companies that are shitty products, excuse my French, are not going to be able to get away with murder anymore. No. That's gone. Similarly to a restaurant that is not having a good product or not able to make good food. I mean, these restaurants are closing in less than 6 months. I think it's going to be exactly the same for SaaS companies, especially as we arrive at a time where scarcity when it comes to funding and profitability is going to be more important. I think just having a stellar product is going to be pretty key. Being able to have a lot of customers loving your product, sharing about it, having a strong network of ambassadors that publicly endorse your company, either on social media or on dark communities. I mean, I think these are the things that gonna matter more. How are we gonna be able to harness all of this as marketing teams? Well, it's complicated, but I think we will see ways to do this. My bet is I think the best use of my time probably is going to be to identify those customers that are extremely happy, that are willing to not only endorse our company, but like genuinely become active in the community and share best practice about our product, and turn into superheroes thanks to our product. That's going to be very, very important in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's two, and I agree completely with what you say, and I think this probably plays along with two more trends that more and more, or a consequence of what you're saying is that more and more of the buying journey moves outside of the account executives realm and more into just how is the RFP list generated, and that happens outside of who the AE is more and more. So you need to be present where the demand is created, so to speak. And I think also with the rise of AI, you'd be a lot of people will be looking even more to people who they know are real people that they've been following for years.
Definitely.
So they will trust them more and more rather than, the chat GPT just pushing out a text that you can't really quantify or qualify that it's actually correct.
And I think, there's a lot of conversation around, because you talked about the role of AEs and, of course, there is a lot of noise in the market in B2B around the role of inside sales and SDR. Eventually, the outreach motion maybe gonna disappear, whatever. I think, AEs, sales and inside sales are probably not gonna go away. I think they're gonna be there, but they're just gonna see their role really changing, especially if you sell complex products such as ours. Once it's not because you have the most recognized brand out there that people gonna go in and sign the contract right away, right? I think having this true advisory to tell them how to integrate your product with your other tech stack, or to train your teams and to make the most of your product. This is going to be, I think, the role of those people, how those roles is going to evolve in the future. So
it's super nice. Like, so it will not be the AE's job to get you on the RFP list anymore. That is the job of
I think it's going to
marketing.
be more making the buying experience as smooth. Doesn't necessarily mean super fast. Sometimes buying the complex product can be hard, right? But as smooth and enjoyable as possible. Marketing role is going to make sure that people come in. Sales role is going to make sure that this buying experience is as enjoyable as possible. And then if you have the right product, people have the best value out of it, you will create more ambassadors and more people endorsing your product ultimately.
Absolutely. Okay, Nicolas, is there anything you wish I would have asked you, and a question that you would like to answer?
Let me think.
Otherwise, you can think about is there in one key takeaway I think marketers should take from your journey this far that they can learn from?
Well, I think we said be obsessed with data. At first, try to really nail down the visibility of your activities to understand what's working, what's not working, having the entire company buying in on that system so that it's truly trustworthy. Go extremely deep into once you find a tactics or a channel that works, try to really go extremely deep, because very often you haven't scratched the surface. And once you do, because you need to scale, try to always find new tactics, new channels to exhaust, if I can say, or try to exhaust, so you can keep growing as fast as is required. And final topic: don't afraid to own revenue target. It's the only way you're going to have a seat at the revenue table. And yeah.
Really, really, really good advice, Nico. I guess now you've already hinted at it, but do connect with Nicolas on LinkedIn, because he does actually take these calls and get to know
Yes,
you.
definitely.
That's how we got to know each other. So do reach out and connect to Nicolas. And then, yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Nicolas, for taking the time to speak with me. For those of you who are listening and want to hear more conversations like the one I've just had with Nicolas, go search for Attributed in your local podcast station, and you'll find a full catalog of really interesting marketing interviews where you hopefully can learn a lot from. I don't know if you've already been there, Nicolas, but that's a big arsenal of stuff you can go listen to there. But thank you so much, Nicolas, and thank you for everybody who's been listening. I